Hey, this is Tiger. Welcome to my stream. Good evening, AJ. Thank you for putting your good evening on the chat, even though you are half asleep already. Nevertheless, welcome to the stream. I am back online, even though I'm still battling the cold in my head, so excuse me, please, for all the sniffing and snorting in advance. I just can't get rid of it, as it seems. CD Radar, so nice to see you on the chat. Ich will jetzt gleich König sein. He says he wants to be king at once. Just wonder, king of what? King of the castle? Koning van de Heuvel? Oder die Weinkönigin? Well, everything, the king of everything the light touches, obviously. Oh, that is quite an ambitious thing to do. Well, I'm sorry, I can't tell you how to become king of everything that the light touches. So you will not be the König unter dem Berg at any rate, not the Dwarven King. But what the stream will be about is American signaling in a rather, well, detailed thing. We have not talked about this particular thingy, and it is not really in the game. The signals are in the game, as you can see here. I actually took a picture to use it during the startup of the stream. What I will be talking about, it is this C indicator that you can see on my picture here. That is not used in the game, unfortunately, because it is, you will see that only there if you have malfunctioning cap signals. And even though we have some routes in the game with quite obviously malfunctioning cap signals, it is never used anywhere. It is a very nice picture, the CD radar. Well, it is a very nice American signal. And I will take it out of the picture again. And we will be talking why those thingies are there on the signals. What is the idea of that, of those signals, and in what circumstances they can be used. In connection with that, we will be talking about Rule 562 territory, sometimes referred to as dark territory under NORAC rules. And with this opportunity, we can go back to Best Boston Sprinter DLC, what is now called the Northeastern Corridor Boston Providence DLC. And I think this is quite nice to do this now, because next week we will be getting the new Boston DLC with MBTA pink trains or purple trains. And there is a branch line on this NEC Boston Providence DLC to Stoughton, and this little branch line is actually Rule 562 territory. I think it is the only approved and certified part that is really 562 territory in the game. Maybe there is some track in the New York Trenton route. There you can see those indicators at any rate, but they might be for branches that are not represented, or at least not playable in the New York Trenton route. So this is why we play first a service that takes us from Boston to Stoughton, and then from Stoughton to Boston, back in the CTC3 cab car. What is a bit cumbersome to drive, because the cap signal aspect display unit is mounted so high. It is always a bit weird to get the camera setting for that. So which one did I want to play? The 1618, right? In November. Let's have some clouds, otherwise we will have this weird lighting. And Yeah, let's just play it. So I'm sorry, sometimes I have to just mute the microphone to get my sneezing not on the channel. Our train F40 PH3C MBTA livery, the purple machines from the original Boston Sprinter DLC. Somehow I really like those trains. And so I can play it now. The 3 switches, reverser, some light since we are in the station. And yeah, you should actually open the doors first thing you do, because you actually do not have any time to prepare your train in those services. Lead or dead, independent on, cut off valve in. With the gauge lights. We will see. Perny, good evening to you. Nice to see you on the chat as well. Front marker lights, no, but front number lights. And we have some switches for the safety systems. Alert control. And then if we want marker lights at the end, we can use the cap switching key that puts us here. Then we can press the 1 and then we are back. It's your anniversary! So nice of you to share it. Happy anniversary, Perny. Yes, I can see it. Nevertheless, anyway, a happy anniversary, a Twitch sub anniversary. Signal at the exit gives us a clear. That is good. Sela is coming in. Limit is 10 here. Still clear. Slow clear. Those 12 signals are always slow clear, but we have a limit of 10 anyway. Cap signaling is giving us a restricting, because it can't get slower than that. Not straight into the depot, but to the right towards Back Bay Station. Going to peek at the signals behind that ramp for the cars. There will be a bridge with signals for us. At some point around here, maybe at those balises here, we will get a 15 from the axis. Yes, increase to 15. see that our signal is the green one. Train next to us is getting restricted. From experience we know that we can't accelerate just on the axis increase. We have to travel the full length with our train, and that will have happened about the same time when the speed limit increases to 30. What happens here on those polices? Didn't this train just get a restricted aspect? Quite fast for that. So we are now running under 15. 30 will be active when we're getting closer to the second bridge there. Like now. We can speed up a little before we have to stop at Boston Back Bay. What I find a bit annoying at the state that this DLC is in at the moment is that we have this kinda very punishing scoring system for speed limit violations, and you're running over speed limit as soon as you get a new signal limit that can jump into your face just because of traffic without you having any chance to know that in advance. And even though you react adequately to it, you will be docked for speeding. Alright. More or less in the spot. Passengers are sometimes falling through the ground here. That's the problem if you have those trapdoors in cars. Well, game kicks the camera away, does not want me to show that. I think that the cars and the doors built that way, the simulated passengers do not always know how to get off the train properly. So out of Back Bay through the tunnel. Speed limit will increase in the tunnel. What is Belvedere? See the radar. Axis increased to 60. Then we'll be active at about the time that we pass the second set of suspenders. Is that... Where did you get this from? Quartier Belvedere? Is there an advertisement for it, or is it a part of the city that we're traveling in? Gotta stop at Ruggles, so we can't go that fast. But still we can use the momentum and go full speed out of the tunnel here. We are ramp anyway. An underground S-Bahn station. Oh, I see. Get some wipers. So, brake a bit, too much. So we have to crawl into our stopping position. Should be good here. Sounds at least very posh, your Quartier Belvedere. I want to pronounce a bit more the French way. So are you guys excited about it? Is in Wien. Yet it is in Wien, yes. I guess it is from a time when French language and French things were very fancy. Even in Vienna. Next up is Route 128, so we're not stopping in Hyde Park. Also means we don't necessarily need to leave this track and can power through. Oh. Don't know if in those short tunnels you need to use a bell anyway. Quite some heavy rain that we're getting here. So how at the moment I'm quite happy about how the game and especially this DLC really looks. In thunder, lightning and in rain especially. Can't always predict it. Sometimes it looks weird, sometimes it looks very nice. Probably don't need a bell in those tunnels, huh? So we're getting a 90 maximum speed and a full green, high green cap signal. Nevertheless, I won't go faster than 79 miles. because I believe that this is the maximum authorized velocity for the kind of cars that we are running. So I won't go up to the 90. Passing another train. We should use the bell anyway. And maybe dim the lights, but then turn them off completely. So how excited are you guys about the new upcoming Boston, Massachusetts DLC and MBTA DLC? CD Raider says, very, I can't wait. Well, he is known for not being too enthusiastic about American DLCs. Well, I have to admit I kinda like those purple trains, the MBTA trains. No idea, I did not really watch any previews about this route. They know nothing about the locomotives, about what kind of signaling we will be getting there. And eventually I will buy this route too. Probably not at release though. And it might have the same weird scoring system. .8 miles till we get to 128. I'm gonna see if we get any adverse signals before we get there. Whether they are flagging us down or whether we have to stop on our own accord. Did you hear about this train burning in Berlin the other day or last night even? In a train, I think a Regionalbahn or Regional Express. I don't know what train it was specifically, what vehicle. Caught fire and burned more or less to the ground. You can say that about the train. Nobody was injured as far as I know. It would still be interesting to know how a train can catch fire like this. those two locomotives with the really intense headlights on the side where they are coupled to each other. So, might wanna start slowing down a bit. Not too heavily since we are in the rain, even though from what I have seen you can actually slow down quite heavily. Oh, we were already at dim headlights. Now we're gonna get a cap speed 80 signal. Another Acela. Stopping at the very, very long platform at Route 128 station. Okay. Are we halfway in a position again? Passengers just don't get it that they don't need to fall through the trap door. But nevertheless, there's a trap, so who can blame them? At least we are on time, see. Still have to wait a bit even. We can release the brakes. Have the inlet brake to hold us in position. Throttle up to 3 and withdrawing some power, release and some trains moving to 4 5 or something. I don't know, this is something that you can do in real life, but in the game it works properly. So what does the radar say? Yesterday I visited the engine room and control room of the Petchin funicular as part of a guided tour. A very interesting experience to see the original day technology up close in combination with the most modern computer control. Very interesting. Petchin, I have to check this out after the stream. Funiculars are really weird thingies. Last funicular I was on was in Bilbao, I think. And in Karlovy Vary they have a funicular as well, right? At least I saw the signs. Even though we did not go on it. We are approaching an approach medium signal. That means we have to slow down to 45. If we are approaching a signal like this, it's no problem actually. We slow down to the 45 that we are getting at this point now. Bing! But if we're getting a signal like this from a code change point without a fixed wayside signal next to it, when we're getting docked anyway, even though we are slowing down. It is a very famous landmark in Prague, I see. It was the most visited place in the city. And Karlovy Vary has the same technology. Yeah, unfortunately I did not have the time when we were in Karlovy Vary the other day. So we're approaching Canton Junction. We have to stop there, but we will be diverging before we stop in Canton Junction because we're going to Stoughton. And that means we're using a platform that is already on the diverging line. Driving under approach medium 45. Then here's a control point, and we are not getting a different indication. Since we got the approach medium 45 from a wayside signal, we also are not actually required to expect a 30 limit at the control point. The other way around, this would be the case. So if we get a 45 from the control point, then we would have to expect a 30 at the next fixed signal. What we expect here anyway. Because we are supposed to diverge. And we will be getting probably a medium approach signal or something like this. Those are one of the more confusing signals in the NORAC system. Red over flashing yellow should be a medium approach signal, meaning 30 now. Be prepared to stop at the next signal, and we're getting 30 indication to go with it. At some point when we're going across the switches, there will be also a limit, track speed limit to 20, and soon afterward most probably we will get a restricting cap signal. So I slow down to the 20, expecting this to happen. Let's have a look in our thing here. At the moment the ruling aspect is the medium approach with 30. Now we should get for a very short time a 20 axis. At this set of balises probably. So no, it's actually already the cap signaling aspect with the restricting. At any rate, we're not supposed to go faster than 20, and now even on side. And gotta stop here at our diverging platform in Canton Junction. Find it always hard not to be late at this point here. After getting the approach medium 45 on the way, we're always getting it, since it prepares our diverging. And we don't need to ring the bell all the time that we are standing at the platform. Actually, those stations here on this route are, in my opinion, much more interesting than then you can really see them from playing the services, because they have so many platforms on diverging lines connected sometimes with gangways and so on. I hope I managed today not to have my train going backwards. It's always annoying. Cab signals switched to green, maximum authorized speed, so that the access limit of 30 is the ruling limit at the moment. And we will have to stop almost immediately at Canton Center. And this here is the signal what the stream is about today. Not the green over red, but this is actually the signal I think I took a photo of that I showed in the beginning. Here. This additional signal with the C, and there is a lunar white lamp that can flash if the dispatcher activates it. Don't find a lot of examples of pictures and videos on the net because it is only activated in very special conditions. And, well, we will talk about those conditions on this stream today. No, I'll break a bit. Maybe wait even more. And by the way, rain has stopped. At least almost. Anyway, guess we should have the brakes fully on so that our train doesn't run away while standing at the station. Or at least our doors completely on the platform, yes. At least that. So this is Canton Center, a much smaller station, even though it is called Center, than the Canton Junction station. And now we're actually getting level crossings, what we have not had so far. So was a bit late with releasing the brakes. And the signal that we just saw, the double tri-light with the C indicator, is the last signal that we will see before we get to Stoughton, because now we are in the Rule 562 territory. We will be guided by cab signals only. At the moment we still have full green, high green cab signal, maximum authorized speed, and the 40 limit, civil speed limit controlled by axis is the ruling one. Obviously a single line branch. That is used in both directions, not at the same time, obviously. New axis balises. Limit stays the same. If I remember correctly, there will be a level crossing behind that bend, and we will go uphill. And we can see how the cap signals will go through their progression from a high green to an approach medium 45. Probably here's the next code change point. Also a small level crossing. Yeah, switched from high green to approach medium 45. Doesn't hurt us because the axis limit of 40 is way below, or at least still below. But we can see how the signals are getting more and more restricting, and obviously they could the Vipers are soldiering on. That sounds disturbing. I think that we will get a more restricting cap signaling aspect at the level crossing that is around the corner here. The rain is over. Window is dry, thank you very much. No, I don't want the Viper Max. What did I do now? Ah, that's the wrong key. I want them off, not maxed. So a signal progression of high green, approach medium 45, then approach 30, and now we are running towards Stoughton, and there will be 10 miles access limit before we get to Stoughton actually. So at some point we have to prepare for that, otherwise we will be docked, and for me the marker is this building with the blue garage doors or whatever they are. and then soon enough we will get the limit to 10. Maybe. Still takes a bit, but it can't be far. I can see the level crossing already. And it is still in front of the level crossing, if I'm not mistaken. Never managed to see any installations here. Cactus Juice Brandon at some point in time on the forums wrote that this line is using a different technology for the track circuitry here. So you can't see the impedance bonds that you usually can see there. But I was mistaken, changed to the 10 is still not here. It was somewhere behind the level crossing, or maybe it's the next level crossing where it is at. Yeah, but we're already almost at the station. Here are balises, and here is the exit signal for the station, where you can see again one of those indicators, the indicator, corresponding one from the other side. We're not getting one because our train here ends here. Did not even get an entry signal for this stopping point here. But on both ends of this long line without any signals in between, we have those double tri-light signals with the additional C indicator. Actually, we are not getting any indication of this 10 limit here. It's just hardwired in the game. It wasn't so bad that we slowed down. We actually got it without getting an indication on our aspect display device. Level crossing cutting through the platform is a very special installation too. And I always want to go all the way until my locomotive is sitting next to this elevated platform here. But actually our stopping point, at least in the game, is way before that. So that was going from Boston to Stoughton through the Rule 562 territory, so that before we are running back by use of the CTC3 cab car, we can have a look at the presentation. If I find it, I did not start it yet, as it seems. It should be US Signals 03. Yes, I think that's that. So, shouldn't be too long today. It is just the idea of Rule 562 territory and the C indicator and what it is supposed to tell us if it is lit in exceptional cases. So this is our example track. We can see we have two interlocking areas to the left and to the right, and a pair of tracks connecting them, and somewhere on this one track there is a little siding that can be accessed with a hand switch, for example.
And I got what I'm talking about from the NORAC Operating Rules 12th edition, what is quite new. It is valid by January the 1st, 2024. And there was actually a change in the rules for this C indicator from 11th edition to 12th edition NORAC. And so I think this merits it even more to talk about it. This is the direction of travel that we are looking at. So we're going on the right-hand track, obviously, from this interlocking to the other interlocking, and we will get one starter signal, or whatever you want to call it, the last control signal in the interlocking A. This is controlled by a traffic dispatcher, and this guy can set the signal to green. Sometimes it is secured by technical means that you cannot put it to green if it is not safe, because the track is not clear or the switches are not aligned properly. But it is not an automatic thing, so a human being actually has to activate something so that the signal can be set to green so that the train can go. And at the entry to the other interlocking area B here, you will have a home signal that is also a controlled signal. So we have looked at this setup with controlled signals at station yard areas, and in between the open track with automatic signals. I've seen that in the UK when we looked at the signal identifier plates, and we have seen that in Polish signaling, where you have quite different masts for the automatic signals as opposed to the semi-automatic signals. So this is a thing that you find in many systems. Controlled interlocking areas, yard areas, station areas, and in between the open track, with sometimes, like in the beginning of railroading, no signals at all, and then automatic signals, because obviously if you don't have any signals in between, then you send a train into this part of the track, and then you have to wait until the train is safely arrived on the other side before you can send the next train, because you never know what happens to the train on its way. And this can slow down things quite a lot, because it is a quite long distance with a lot of blocks, or a really very long block, and before the second train can enter, the first train has to get to the next interlocking area, and you get the message from the dispatcher there that the train is there, and they can send the next. And that is more or less the very coarse and old-fashioned way of doing it. And obviously there can be mistakes, and what can you still do? You can put a distance signal in front of the home signal, for example, so that the train that is approaching knows in advance whether the home signal is set to clear or set to stop, so that the engineer can prepare to how to approach the home signal with the distance signal. Typically it cannot show a completely red signal, cannot require you to stop, but aspects in American signaling for signals, be it home signal or distance signal, are typically the same aspects that the signals can show. So unlike in Germany, where you have in the HV system, for example, completely different signal aspects for distance signals and main signals, this is typically not the case, so that you can't really see, at least not on first glance, whether you're passing a distance signal or a home signal of what kind, because signals potentially can show the same aspects. Not a completely red in case of a distance signal, but anyway, so this is why I put the yellow one here. Home signal is red, then you will get the approach to distance signal. So again, a classic way of doing this. You can go on your way, and the distance signal will warn you whether you can just run into the station or whether you have to stop in front of it. So, but this means you have one large block, and can, if you want to use an absolute block system and make it safe, only send one train per block. And if you want to send more trains in the block, because it is on the track, then you can cut it down into several little blocks. Like you can put up automatic block signals: automatic block signal 1, automatic block signal 2, automatic block signal 3, and then you have more little blocks, and then you can build the signals in a way that track circuitry can detect whether there is a train, and the signals know what the signal and the next signal can show, and like that you can show to the engineer whether they can proceed or not. With automatic signals, what is the benefit of automatic signals? Obviously is that the traffic dispatchers sitting at the interlocking areas, they can, if they look out of the window, oversee what is happening on their interlocking areas maybe. But in former times we did not have all the means of remote controlling everything that was happening more remote to the dispatcher, and so automatic signals are a good thing because they can work decentralized and just by means of the track circuitry in between, and so you can get a more or less reliable reading without anyone controlling them. This is why typically on the open track you have automatic signals doing stuff automatically. And then you can also get rid of the distance signals, because then the last automatic block signal can do what the distance signal typically does. This is why in Polish signaling we have this Wildkaschnik V18, for example, telling us this is the last block signal. After that you get the home signal, so you can prepare for that. And then you can send even more trains, and yeah, let's have this one second signal head so that the aspect can be announced properly. And then we have several blocks that can be used for our trains. Block 0, because that is actually not an automatic block, but the block that is connected with the starter signal, and on conditions of those blocks, those signal can display aspects, and then you can get more trains from A to B and speed up things. And this would be the typical automatic block signal system, ABS, not to be confused with absolute block. Whether those are absolute blocks or permissive blocks is not necessarily given by the fact that those are automatic block signals, but this abbreviation ABS sometimes confuses a bit because it sounds so absolutely. And anti-lock brake system, also that as well, but this is not so easily to be confused. But automatic block signal and absolute block signaling system is sometimes easily confused if you use the ABS abbreviation for it. The one thing is just telling you that you have automatic signals on the open track that don't need to be controlled by the signaler, not necessarily. Sometimes it can be in cases of emergency in more modern setups, but in the traditional setups only controlled by the track circuitry or whatever means that can determine whether the block is free or not. And absolute block system would mean, or is telling you that you cannot pass into a block that is already occupied by a different train. We know that in Germany we have a very rigid view of that, and we have most of the time absolute block signaling, an absolute block system, whereas in the US you have typically a permissive block system, at least on the northeast corridor, where trains can go into the block even though there is already a train in that block, and then typically getting a restricted cap signal so that they have to be prepared to run up to the next train. But for example, Polish signaling, again, we know that the automatic signals are permissive. They don't work as an absolute block system. You can pass them after stopping, like a stop and proceed, what we also know from American system a lot. This is why typically the automatic signals have those number plates, and they are typically permissive in most systems because they tell you red light with a number plate, stop and proceed. You stop and then you proceed with restricted speed or really slow. Yeah, but this can differ a lot from different systems, and if something goes wrong, then dispatchers can call out an absolute block system and you cannot enter an occupied block, and so on. But just to make sure that this stuff is not confused with each other. Automatic block system and absolute block are two different ideas, even though they can both use the same abbreviation sometimes. I want to talk about the automatic block signaling system as the classic way of doing things between two interlockings and to get more trains from A to B, because you cut the open track into smaller blocks that can be determined whether they are occupied or not automatically, and the signals at the beginning of the block can tell you whether this block and the next block is free or occupied. And then we know that on the Northeast Corridor, cap signals are used, and of the variety of the pulse code cap signals that use the electric circuitry in the blocks to not only determine whether the block is occupied or not, but also to send coded pulses to the train, and the train can interpret those and get the cap signals to the driver and display the aspects on the display unit according to what codes are sent. So we have a video about pulse code cap signaling where we talk about this quite a lot. So if you want to know more about this or rewatch it, then you are very invited to watch those videos. For now, we just need to know we are getting the cap signals into the train, into the cab, by means of those orange circuits that determine whether the track is free or not, and at the same time convey this information to the driver. So a driver passing this automatic block signal would get at the same time a cap signal telling him what this signal was displaying. So in case he did not see it or did forget it, the engineer can just look on their display unit and have it in front of their eyes all the time until they get to the next signal. So in the most simple form, those pulse code cap signals just repeat what the wayside fixed signals were actually telling the engineer, so that they have it in front of their eyes all the time. But we know that things can be made more complex with the cap signaling. For example, if you have the cap signaling indication anyway, then why pay for so many fixed wayside signals? So we can get rid of, let's say in this case, every second one, can be even more in between, and just replace them by code changing points. Like we see this on the Boston Providence route a lot. We have a wayside signal, then we are passing those little gray boxes with the impedance bonds in the track, and here we can witness our cap signals change, typically worsen, but they can also be relieved at those points, but relieved they can be even between those code changes points, but typically they don't get more restricted unless in an emergency. But at code change points they can get worse, even though there is no fixed wayside signal at the site. So this is what we encounter a lot between Boston and Providence. And then we have rules for for the fact that they actually have to agree, that the cap signals obviously need to agree with the wayside signals, and what happens if they don't, and if they change on the way. Those are rules 552, 553 especially, and we have videos about this also, so I cannot go into this today because it's a long story, but there are videos on my YouTube channel if you're interested in this thing. And then obviously the next logical step to save more money for not building any fixed wayside signals and maintaining it is to get rid of all of them on our piece of track and just have code change points there of any kind. And this then is the Rule 562 territory. Sometimes it is called dark territory, what can be a bit confusing because the term dark territory is also used by different provisions in the law. For example, the section 2164B of the United States Code 49, where dark territory is every territory where you do not have any fixed signals and no other form of train control system, and with an elaborate way of postcode cap signaling with speed control connected to it and automatic train stop. Obviously you have a control system even though you do not have any wayside signals at this piece of track. So if you call the rule 562 territory dark territory, is in so far it is fair because you don't have any wayside fixed signals there anymore. But it is a bit of a different thing. Traditionally, dark territory is simply a piece of track where you don't have anything, no signals, no track circuits, maybe no nothing to control the traffic there, and so you just need to work with track warrants or whatever to make sure that the trains don't run into each other. But sometimes you can find that rule 562 territory is also referred to as dark territory, what is fair, but you always need to know that it sometimes means something different. And for that you have to, first of all, rule 562 section A, that says more or less in territory of that kind fixed signals rule the interlocking limits, and if there is, for example, a distant signal, any what can be there but does not necessarily need to be there, but if it is there, then it controls the approach to the home signal, and the cap signals control the rest. That is more or less quite self-explanatory. But this is, if you find it somewhere written, rule 562 territory, meaning there are no fixed wayside signals and we are relying on the cap signals on our way from one interlocking to the next. And yeah, question is obviously what happens if your cap signals break, if they don't work. So if they don't work at the beginning of your shift, when you want to leave the home station with your train, then you can't, at least that is how I take the rules. If your cap signals don't work, you cannot start your train. But if they fail en route, then there are provisions that allow you to proceed because the train needs to get home again somehow. And for this situation where your cap signals fail en route, there are certain things that can be done to get you home at least. But first let's look at our example here. What is the problem if you do not have any cap signals on a piece of track like this that is typically controlled by cap signals? If you're standing here waiting at this red light and then the dispatcher actually gives you a green light and you start driving happily, and then there is no signal until you get to the home signal. The problem is that putting this signal to green gives you only the indication that the next block is free, and typically also the block after that will be free, because otherwise you should not have gotten a green one but an yellow one, an approach light telling you that the next signal is at stop. But after that you cannot really be sure whether here, in case there were still automatic block signals, you would run into a red light here. So after that point here, it is unclear whether the track is open, free, clear forever to go, just judging by the signal that you get here. And this is why Rule 562 Section C Item 2 orders every engineer driving a train with cap signals failed en route when entering Rule 562 territory to drive at restricted speed. Would have been possible to say, well, you have to start driving at restricted speed as soon as you approach code change point 2, but this is perhaps sometimes hard to see and difficult to train, so it's easier to tell them, okay, just drive with restricted speed all the time, because you don't know what is happening en route, if there is a train or whatever. And this obviously slows down things considerably if the train has to travel the whole part until it gets to the next interlocking with a restricted speed, maximum of 20, typically 20 miles per hour. And if there are bends and obstacles, you have to slow down even more, because you have to be prepared to stop in front of any obstacle that can get in the way of your train. So, and this is even more annoying because we have track circuitry in our track, so the dispatcher actually can see whether the track is clear and whether the switch here is aligned properly, because he has a technical thing that actually reports to him the way that how the switch is set. So the dispatcher can see the track is free, but there is no means to tell the driver by switching this signal to anything better than a high green to convey this information that the whole track is free until the engineer gets to the next interlocking. So one thing to allow the train to go faster than restricted speed in a situation like this would be using a train order, a Form D, and for that you have the Rule 563 that can be used to order the train to go faster than restricted speed in a case like this, that the cab signals have failed en route on this train, but the dispatcher can see from the track circuitry that the whole route is clear. But obviously, as anyone knows, train orders are clumsy and need to be gotten to the train and everything. For that, Rule 280A in the NORAC operating rules were invented, and those are those indicators here with the C that have, in case that they are set, a flashing lunar white light under an illuminated or reflective white C. And this is called clear to next interlocking. And it is, from what I understand, a thing that the dispatcher can set deliberately by pushing a button or flipping a switch. It is secured in a technical manner that this switch can only be thrown if the track circuitry deliver a clear track to the next interlocking's home signal. So it is not only up to the dispatcher's clairvoyancy to know whether the track is clear or not, but it is technically secured by the track circuitry. But then the dispatcher has to throw the switch to turn on this flashing light, and for that the dispatcher needs to know from the engineer that the cab signals failed en route, and then the engineer getting, for example, a green indication together with the flashing lunar white here can go faster than restricted speed significantly. Up to 11th edition it was even 79 miles per hour maximum, and with the 12th edition it was lowered to 59, what was all the time, as far as, if I remember correctly, the speed that passenger trains were limited to in real dark territory, in territory where you did not have any train control stuff. The dark territory from this provision in the 49 USC that I quoted on the slide before, so I think they just made this equal here at this point, so that those numbers agree. And this obviously makes the train go faster to the home signal. And since we only know that the track is clear but not what the home signal is actually telling us, we tell the driver, you can go, the engineer, you can go 59 miles on this track, but you have to approach the home signal prepared to stop. You have to treat it as a red home signal, so you need to be able to stop in front of it, because we do not necessarily have a distance signal at this point that is giving us a better indication maybe. And since we have no means of telling you about the status or the aspect of the home signal by cab signaling, because the cab signaling is down, you have to treat it as a red signal and drive accordingly. Yes. Then there are two different situations where you can use this indicator. One thing is if not the cab signaling stuff on the train breaks, but that is totally okay, but the cab signaling apparatus on the wayside installation, that stuff that gets the cab signals into the train, is down because it is under construction or getting replaced or whatever, then obviously the train is not getting any cab signals in this part either. And for that way you can use the rule 280A as well and allow the engineer to go the 59 miles. That would be rule 562 section F. Also works with the form D, but obviously if you have an indicator of that kind, it is the easier thing to throw a switch than to write a form D. And then there's also the situation where on the train the cab signals work properly, but your speed control and the automatic train stop, so the system that reacts if the engineer is not reacting to the cab signals and going too fast or not acknowledging or stuff, and not paying attention to stop signals, then this is those kind of systems, or these kind of systems can control the speed or bring the train to a stop. And if only that stuff does not work and is malfunctioning, but the cab signals as such, then you are, according to rule 562 section D item 2, not slowed down to restricted speed, but typically to 40, unless you get the rule 280A indicator, and then you can go the 59, but still have to approach the next signal prepared to stop. So this reminds you, if you look at German stuff that we had with Ersatzsignal and Vorsichtssignal, where you differentiate between sometimes being slowed to 40 kilometers per hour and sometimes being slowed to 40, but also driving on site, restricted 40 miles per hour. We have some correspondence here. So if you don't get any signals, you have to drive really slow on site. If you only running without safety systems but get the indications by the signals, then you can go a bit faster or significantly faster. And if you have this indication here, then you can actually go the 59, and until last year, 2023, even 79 miles per hour. Yeah, that was this arcane C indicator, at least as far as I think I understood it from the rules and what you can find about it. It is not a thing that happens often, because it only happens if the cab signals fail on a train en route, and this does not happen in the game, because sometimes you have malfunctioning cab signals. Just think of Sherman Hill, but no dispatcher ever reacts to that, and so we don't really see that, but we have those signal heads on our signals that we pass, and we have this rule 562 territory between Canton Junction and Stoughton here in the Boston Providence DLC. So we can talk about it. One thing, we have seen it here, 280A, 280B. What is the 280B now? The thing is, even if this home signal is set to a high green, clear clear indication by the dispatcher controlling this one. We have to approach it prepared to stop, so we have to slow down, and then we can at some point see the signal and its indication, and then accelerate again. And to speed up this process a bit, so that we can exempt our engineer from having to approach the home signal prepared to stop, but with normal speed, there is Rule 280B. That only works if there is, what does not need to be, but still can be sometimes, distance signal before you get to the interlocking B. And then at this distance signal, you can have an indicator that looks like this. It does not have a C, but it has an N. Also has a flashing lunar white if it is put on, and it is called an approach normal. And this allows the engineer passing the distance signal here to approach the home signal with normal speed. Obviously still limited to the 59 maximum, but he does not need to approach the home signal prepared to stop. That is, well, the implication of the approach norm thing. It is in the rules, but as far as I understand, it does not exist in real life. At least not anymore, and it was never a big thing, because obviously you think, why would you need that thing anyway if you have a distance signal? Why not have the distance signal rule the approach to the home signal? So if the distance signal is giving you a high green, why is this not enough? Why do you still need the approach normal indicator? So I think this is only a thing that makes sense to have if you have a signaling system in which the distance signal does not really give you a proper information about the home signal, whether you can approach it with normal speed or slower or whatever. And from what you can read in the limited sources that you can find on the net, Metro North sometimes use those thingies in rare occasions, or is even still using it. And a different railroad actually tried or wanted or intended to use them, but as far as I know, they are not used anymore. But they are still in the rule book, and even in the 12th edition of 2024. And in the Metro North system, if you think about it, they have this very reduced wayside signaling system and rely on cap signals very, very much. So maybe this is a point in case if you have a distance signal that doesn't really give you information about the aspects and the indication of the home signal, and it might make sense to have this Rule 280B indicator. One funny thing still is that you can have this C indicator with the white flashing lunar light that is meant as a replacement for failed cap signals, even on a cap signaling aspect display unit. If you think of that thingy here, that you can see in your Acela or on the ACS 64 locomotive, this Siemens type cap signaling thing, you can find this section here with the C signal. So how can it make sense to have a signal that is meant to only work in situations where the cap signals fail, integrated in your cap signaling system? So if anyone knows more about why this is integrated here, please let me know. At least one situation where it can make sense is the thing where not the cap signals fail, but the wayside cap signaling apparatus is removed. Then you might use this to send to the train cap signal information of that kind when entering the Rule 562 territory. because the cab signaling stuff on the train is still working and only the wayside stuff does not work. But what if this is actually used in real life, and in what situations? I'd be really interested to learn more about it, because at the first it seems a bit counterintuitive to have in your cab signaling equipment a signal that was invented in case that the cab signaling system on your train does not work anymore. Yeah, I think that is it for today. Counterintuitive. That is a word, is it not? Like 10 reds, but you can still go to CD radar. Yes, the old red thingy. Well, anyway. That was my presentation for today. Again, a bit of stuff that is not really implemented and working in the game, but in my opinion, always, yes, and it was again longer than I thought. I always think like, well, this is only 3 ideas, and then I start talking about it, and then it takes like 3/4 of an hour. I'm sorry for that. Anyway, I'm interested in learning more about those a bit arcane thingies that are not really self-explanatory. I have to change the service indication. We're going back from Stoughton to... No, that's not the right one. From Stoughton to Boston on the... A bit weird... Oh, I cannot set the weather. Let's just take the weather. I really love this cab car here, but we will see. It has a weird niggle. At least now. I don't think that it used to have it. Don't forget to turn on the switches here in this little box, otherwise it won't work. At any rate, you don't have an independent brake here. Headlights are here. Let's use the dim ones. That is already set to the proper thing. Then we need to turn on the number lights and marker lights on the locomotive that is running at the back of the train, and to turn on the safety systems we need to move to this panel here, and if I'm not mistaken we have 2 switches to get the stuff working. And we have this very beautiful aspect display unit here that is giving us a restricting at the moment. Inflating the brake pipe. And we are entering our Rule 562 territory from the opposite side now. Oh yeah, we're running. We're not hearing any engine noise. But the bell. And as you can see, this thing is not updating here. You hear the beep for it having changed, but it is not updating until you switch the camera or go into the pause screen. And this is a bit annoying, because not only you have to always have your camera in a way that you can see your display unit up there, but also it's not updating. Nor is this beautiful vintage aspect display unit. Whoop! You heard it? As soon as I go into pause screen and back again, we will be here at 40 and this will still be green probably. See? Only thing that is really updating is this speed clock here. And the indication for brakes released and brakes applied. Not yet out of it. Running downhill pretty much until we get to Canton Center. So you can see we're speeding up. Needle is climbing 20, but the indication here on the ADU is still at 9. If we go pause screen and back again, 26 all of a sudden. So this needs to be fixed in my opinion. It is clumsy enough. This cab car. Without always having to go into pause screen to update the cab signal indication. I'm afraid though that this does not count as one of the situations. In which you can use the C indicator, and if so, the game dispatcher is not using it. Also here, we did not get the approach medium before going through the pause screen. Not really important because the access limit is still lower. But anyway. So, last bend before we get to Canton Center. There will be a limit to 30 at some point. Don't know exactly where. At least at the signal, because it's a medium approach signal. Yep. And when passing this, we're getting a 30 on the aspect display unit, and also a nice yellow light on the vintage one. Come creep a bit to the last. Three feet. And here we are. It's a bit clumsy that we don't have an independent brake on the cab car. And off we go. Soon we will have to stop at Canton Junction. And we are still running on the approach, meaning we have to be prepared to stop at the next signal. What is... Yes. What is the signal at the end of the platform? But because this signal is red, we are getting at the code change point here a restricting, limiting us to 20. And since I did not anticipate it early enough, I got docked for driving significantly over speed limit. Signal switched to limited clear. Limited clear would be 45. Can't go that fast. Still under limit, under restricting. Now I should upgrade 45 at this point. You hear the sound, and now you can even see it. Still have to, yeah, adhere to a 30 limit in track speed until we are out of the interlockings here. Like now. And now we can accelerate to the 45 and we go from the limited clear, and now it even changed to maximum authorized speed. Since we cleared the interlockings completely. And we can run through beautiful New England in autumn. Early evening. Have to stop at route 128 again. In this direction, the game is actually controlling us to a 17.9 vehicle speed limit when running from the cab car. Maybe I should start slowing down again. Ah, nonsense. There was 2 miles left. I think we need about 3,500 feet for slowing down from close to 18 miles. The signal is not flashing, it is only hidden behind the catenary post. And like always, there's an accelerating. with an MBTA train sitting at its back. Those are the choice. Multiple occupancy and permissive block. One train sitting on the other one. Route 128. Oh, we have to stop at Hyde Park actually. On our way home. Again, something that needed to be acknowledged. But was not updated on its own. Nice thing about running in a cab car is always that everything is as silent as a submarine. One thing that is a bit weird is those stopping markers. We stopped at the 6 cars marker right now. We are 6 vehicles. That includes the locomotive that is still behind. So we actually have 6 cars. And then you have the 8 car marker here in the gangway, or on the ramp. Oh. So Boston Back Bay, that means you're not stopping at Ruggles or anywhere else. So we can go full throttle until we get slowed down by traffic or in the approach to Boston Back Bay. Typically we will get an approach medium 45 shortly before we get to Ruggles. Almost back at our 79 maximum authorized speed.
very mellow lighting here. So, now we need to be prepared for some restricting signals. I can approach medium 45. Soon enough. And here we are. Probably should have used the bell when passing this train here. Tunnel to Back Bay. In the tunnel there will be a further reduction to 30. This time I think it is an access controlled civil speed limit. See if we make it before it hits us. District is quite late. Yeah, it was. And Back Bay. And low for a bit. At the end of this platform, see the radar's most favorite American signal at dwarf, yellow over flashing red. What is the dwarf equivalent of a red over flashing yellow? and equals a medium approach. We're still running under an approach medium 45 and a 30 track limit. And now the signal speed limit will adjust to the 30. Beep. And we're getting closer to Boston South Station. Access limit will drop to 15 and then 10. Here come the polices. And we have to get our head out of the window to see whether the dwarf signals overhead allow entry, and they do. Slow approach. And here we are back at beautiful Boston South.
And here we are finally. Thank you so much for staying with me during this stream on the old Boston Providence DLC, looking into Rule 562, territory, sometimes referred to as dark territory, and the C indicators, clear to next interlocking, and maybe at some point in the game, at some point in time, we will see it in the game actually used in situations where cap signals fail on route. Soon enough we will get a new Boston DLC. Somehow I'm looking forward to it. Might really be a nice one. I always like the New England routes. They feel cozy and nice. Well, thank you so much. I hope I will finally lose my cold in the head until next week, or until next stream at any rate. Take care and have a good time.